Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here with the results and thoughts about the full SmackDown Superstar Shakeup that went down last night on WWE SmackDown. That would have been on April 17th. This is the second year of the Superstar Shakeup, and I can honestly tell you by just looking at the results of this whole deal, Monday Night Raw took, I believe, they totaled up 21 wrestlers / personalities from SmackDown, and they didn't really get much back in return from Monday Night Raw. I can honestly tell you that I think that as of right now, SmackDown is not gutted. I mean, they're not really just, they didn't get just taken to the cleaners. They got some really good people back, and I think that if they really push Jeff Hardy to his potential of where he was around 2009. Jeff Hardy was probably the second most popular wrestler in the United States, only behind John Cena back then. And he really left at the point when he really reached his peak. Jeff Hardy is a guy that, when he got moved to SmackDown, pushed himself hard enough that he became WWE champion. And as of right now, even though he only has the United States Championship, I really think that he can become a big star. Again, I know that one of the reasons he probably got moved over is because they're doing the whole storyline with Bray and Matt Hardy. And I know that Vince sort of gets weirded out when you got two people with the same name on the same show. And they actually, if you go in the past and you read the Hardy's book, that's one of the reasons why Jeff stayed on Monday Night Raw and Matt got sent to SmackDown. And Matt on his own, I mean, as a tag team, Matt Hardy is always looked at as the second Hardy in the Hardy Boys. He's always going to be the Marty Jannetty of that group. But on his own, Matt has found ways to push himself as a really good hand there is in wrestling. We already knew that The Miz got moved over. We already know that The Miz is going to make the most of any situation that this guy is ever in. He's a guy that can be on top. Hasn't been there since WrestleMania 27, but he's a guy that can make the Intercontinental Championship or the United States Championship really mean something, and he's going to make his title reign reputable. Look for him to be in the hunt no matter where he's going to be. From there we go to Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. Of course, this was Absolution, the former group that Paige was in. Now Paige is the general manager of the show, so it looks like she just sort of brought her friends over. This is a group that honestly could go either way. Honestly, in my opinion, a lot of people have high hopes for Mandy Rose. They think that she's like the hottest thing that there is in wrestling right now. I'm not going to say that this is a slam dunk best situation for these girls to be in. They're already coming into a women's division that's loaded up. You've got Charlotte. Asuka gets moved over here in a minute. We'll talk about her. You've got Carmella. So, I mean, they're coming in. They're not going to be on top, unless they sort of get pushed because they're Paige's girls and she wants to see them do the best and takes care of them. From there we go to Samoa Joe. This is a guy that was basically going to be the main event of Monday Night Raw. He already has a championship match against Roman Reigns at Backlash. Samoa Joe is a guy that we've seen just about everywhere on the card. And it doesn't matter if he's wrestling against a guy like Sami Zayn or if he's wrestling against a guy like Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns. That's probably going to be one of the best matches of the night. And just to see Randy Orton versus Samoa Joe, that's enough for me to say that I think that's a match that I'm really looking forward to seeing. And a lot of people who watch these videos know that I'm not the biggest Randy Orton fan, and it takes a lot for me to get invested in a Randy Orton feud. But that's going to come sooner than later, and I think that's going to be a good one. From there we go to Big Cass. Big Cass came in and he immediately had beef with Daniel Bryan. I don't really like Big Cass, and I don't understand why they broke up him and Enzo. I think Enzo and Cass could have been one of the biggest tag teams there was in WWE, and obviously Enzo's not with the company anymore. But to me, Cass is always going to be a likable babyface. For me to believe this guy is a heel, it's going to take a lot to make me disband belief. I'm always going to look at this guy like he's a joke. It doesn't mean he's not a nice guy. I just look at this guy and I remember everything they went through in NXT and everything they went through on the main roster as a tag team, and I want to like this guy. So it's just not believable for me to not. From there we go to Asuka, easily one of the biggest names. She just lost her streak at WrestleMania. For her to be on the same show as Charlotte means to me that they're probably going to continue Charlotte versus Asuka sooner than later. It's going to be hard to sort of separate them and hide them if they're both on the same show, even if they are both baby faces like they are right now. But both of these girls on the same show, Carmella should be celebrating having that championship because it's going to be a lot for her to keep it. And more than likely, I can see them mainly doing some three-ways sooner than later. And you actually see Carmella getting the win because Asuka beats up Charlotte or Charlotte beats up Asuka. And basically Carmella just picks the bones and is in the right spot in order to get a pin. From there we go to Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Although the tag team division on SmackDown is really deep. There's a lot of tag teams over there. I like these guys. I've never hid that fact, and I said that's the reason why I like to see these guys get pushed is because how much I like to talk and shop and how much that really got me invested in these guys as characters, as, you know, wrestlers, as well as real people. And you want those people that you know that are good people to get pushed and to have success in what they're doing. It's not a slam dunk here, honestly, because of the fact that there's so many good tag teams. I hate that I'm jumping around here, but the Bar, you know, those guys coming in fresh off being the WWE Monday Night Raw tag team champions. Shit, I just went blank on who else is on that show. But you've got the Usos, you've got the New Day. You know, it's going to be hard for them to be, you know, that fourth tag team and break into being that #1 slot. From there we go to Cesaro and Sheamus. You know, that, like I said, them with the Usos and New Day, that tag team division on SmackDown is basically set. And, you know, a lot of people are going to say, well, you know, what if they break them up and what if they go singles? That's only going to help SmackDown out even more from there. A lot of people are just saying that the R-Truth move doesn't really make a lot of sense. But for that, you're going to have to remember who is in charge of SmackDown, and that's Road Dogg. And Road Dogg, you know, before he left to go to TNA, he was in a tag team with R-Truth. When he was in TNA, he was in a group with R-Truth, 3 Live Crew. These guys have a history. In the wrestling business, people have history. Other people take care of those people. I'm sure that R-Truth is going to be booked on a lot of house shows, and I wouldn't be surprised if R-Truth, even if it's not the biggest you know, spot on the roster, is going to find himself on a lot of SmackDown shows because Road Dogg's going to take care of his boy and, you know, not let him fall off the face of the earth. You know, I'm not saying that he's going to be main eventing Capital Punishment 2010 or 2011, whatever year that was. He's not going to be main eventing pay-per-views, but Road Dogg's going to find a spot for him to be on there. From there, we go to the NXT call-ups. We had Sanity minus Nikki Cross. It's going to be Eric Young, Alexander Wolf, and Killian Dane. For people who watched my review on NXT War Games, Killian Dane, to me, could easily be one of the best big guys in the business. To see a match between Killian Dane and Samoa Joe is like I want to see that so bad. I don't care if it's in a tag match. I don't care if it's in, you know, something. But just to see those two guys in the ring going after each other, beating the hell out of each other. That's like when I talk about matches, like, you know, guys like Hercules, the British Bulldog, the Warlords of like the 1980s old school WWF, just liking those guys, just going in there, just beating the hell out of each other. I think of him as being there. Eric Young, it's good to see him reach the main roster after, you know, the years in TNA, him paying his dues, going back over in NXT, and not being one of those guys that, you know, think that just Triple H brings him over because they have that experience and they're only going to be there on NXT. That's an old school myth that basically people went to NXT just to sort of make the roster there look good. There is a chance for you to move up once you get there. So Sanity's going to be raising some hell there. So like how I talked about, you know, the Bar, the Club, New Day. There's going to be a lot of tag team matches. You know, they better get, you know, Teddy Long on the phone because he's going to be loving it. And to me, honestly, the biggest move out of all of these guys is Andre Cien Almas. This is honestly, I think of all the picks I made for Raw and SmackDown with the Superstar Shakeup, it's the only one that I got right. Andre Cien Almas is going to be a huge star on SmackDown. SmackDown has always been based around, you know, pushing Hispanic or Mexican talent, however you want to call it, whether if it's Batista or Rey Mysterio. It's a place where they've always, really built a Mexican audience, and for him to be able to go on tour with the main roster, and they go to Mexico, he's going to get pushed. I guarantee he's going to be in those main event matches against who is the champion at the time. I know that he came from Mexico. I know that he was a big star that sort of WWE was able to sway away, and when he was on NXT for the longest time, it didn't really make sense because he was always in matches on NXT takeovers, but it always seemed like he was just putting somebody over. He was like the best jobber on the roster, almost like he took Ty Dillinger's job once Dillinger left. But he really found his own, where he basically won the NXT championship. Now that he's dropped it and he's on the main roster, he might start slow, but I guarantee you by the time we get to next year and they do the Superstar Shakeup again, he is going to be the biggest name on the SmackDown roster, and he's going to be the biggest steal that people are talking about. I'm really looking forward to that one, and I think it's going to be the best situation for him.